Classified Crime is on the case of Sarah Boone, and today we are continuing our up close look at her phone call logs from February 2025. Okay, so we left off with February. She didn't make any calls on February 1st. On February 2nd, she starts off with Julian and got a hold of him for a little over a minute. Then she called her son twice and it was not accepted. And then she called her son again at the end of the day and they talked for about 15 minutes. She called Brian. They talked for 2 minutes. This is on the 3rd. And then she called her son again twice and it was not accepted. She then called Lana on the 3rd, not accepted. And then Brian on the 4th and spoke for about 3.5 minutes. She called Brian on the 4th again, not accepted. Brian again, not accepted. So she called him at 9 in the morning and got a hold of him and then tried him again around 1:30 and not accepted. She called Lana at 1:30 and they talked for about 30 minutes. She called Brian again on the 5th. This is starting on the 5th. And they talked for about 12 minutes. Then called her son, not accepted. Then called her son again and they spoke for about 30 minutes. She called Nicole and they spoke for about a minute on the 6th. Then she called Julian, not accepted. Peter spoke for about 28 minutes. She calls her brother on the 6th, not accepted. Her brother again, 2 minutes later, not accepted. She then called someone named Danielle, not accepted, and then called her again and spoke for 19 minutes. On the 7th, she called Lana. That's the only call she made on the 7th. They spoke for 30 minutes. Then she called Brian on the 8th, not accepted. Lana, not accepted. Peter, they spoke for a little over almost 4 minutes. Brian, they spoke for almost 2 minutes. Lana, not accepted. Lana, not accepted. And then she called her brother and they actually spoke for 23 minutes. Then she called her son on the 9th, not accepted. Her son again, not accepted. She called Lana, not accepted. Her son, not accepted. Her brother, and they spoke for 6.5 minutes. And then she calls her son again and again, not accepted. And then Brian twice. He didn't accept the first time, and the second time they talked for about 2 minutes. But you'll notice again, she's calling 2 minutes apart. So on the 9th, she called her son 8:05 p.m., 8:07. Then this is on the 10th. She calls Brian 1:48, 1:50 p.m. And then down here, you can see she called her son 3:35, 3:37 p.m. So she keeps calling back to back. I don't know why. If they don't pick up the first time, she thinks they're going to pick up again in 2 minutes. All right. Then she called Lana on the 10th and they spoke for just about 30 minutes. She calls her son, not accepted. Son again, not accepted. Son again, not accepted. Son again. And they spoke for about 30 minutes. So that was 7:35, 37, 38. And then she called him about 8:25 and he answered the phone. Those were all on the 10th. On the 11th, she started out with Brian, not accepted. Then her brother, not accepted. Brian, not accepted. Julian, not accepted. Brian, not accepted. So she's striking out on February 11th. Then Brian again, not accepted. Again, 2 minutes apart. What is with the 2 minutes? And then she calls Lana, not accepted. She calls Brian on the 12th and speaks to him for just under a minute. And then Julian on the 12th twice, and she doesn't get a response the first time. And then they talk for about a minute the second time. Brian on the 13th, not accepted. Her son, not accepted. Brian, not accepted. So 9:30, 9:32, 9:33, not accepted. And then she gave up and called her brother at 9:35, and that was also not accepted. Not accepted. Nicole talked to her for about 30 minutes on the 13th. And then her brother twice, 16:01, 16:03, not accepted. Her son on the 13th, which she just called him down here in the morning. And then she tries him in the afternoon. So 16:05, not accepted. 16:06, she calls Brian and talks for 3 minutes. And then Brian hangs up. Then she calls her son at 7:54 p.m., not accepted. Then she calls her son at about 8:30, and they talk for 30 minutes. On Valentine's Day, she starts by calling her brother, and they talk for 4 minutes and 27 seconds. And then she called her son. They talked for about 5 minutes. And those are the only 2 calls she made on Valentine's Day, to her brother and her son. So she gave most people the gift of leaving them alone that day. Then we see Julian. She called him on the 15th. They spoke for about 18 minutes. That was the only call she made on the 15th. On the 16th, she started with her brother, 2 minutes back to back 3 times, and it was not accepted. She knows her brother has a full-time job. Oh, and then here we go again. 1 minute later, not accepted. And then on the 17th, we have someone named Steve she talked to for 5 minutes. And then she called her brother. They talked for 5 minutes, and her brother hung up. And then we have a call to Julian on the 18th. They talked for about 19 minutes, and Sarah hung up. No calls on the 19th. And she called Lana 4 times. Oh, sorry, 1 time on the 20th. We spoke for about 20 minutes. And then she called her twice on the 22nd, and it was not accepted. And then she called her again on the 24th, and it was not accepted. She called Steve again, and they talked for 5 minutes until her time was up. I don't know who Steve is, but that's who the number came up to. Someone named Steve. And then Lana on the 24th, they talked for about 30 minutes. Julian on the 25th, for about 13 minutes. Julian again for about 20 minutes on the 25th. Peter on the 25th, twice, not accepted. Then she called Lana on the 25th, and they talked again for about 30 minutes. And Peter, again, twice on the 25th, not accepted. And then she tried her son, not accepted. And she only tried him once, and then went to Peter on the 26th. First thing in the morning, not accepted twice. Then she called her son on the 26th at 9 in the morning. Talked to him for 1 minute and 39 seconds. She called Peter again twice, 11 and 11:01. It was not accepted. Lana, she spoke for 30 minutes on the 26th until her time was up. And then she called Lana again, and it just says inmate hung up, but they did not talk. It says no time. Her son on the 26th, not accepted. She called him 3 times, 2 minutes apart. Twice on the 26th, 2 minutes apart, not accepted. Then called him first thing in the morning on the 27th at 8:45 in the morning, not accepted. Then she called Brian, and he picked up for 2 minutes and 46 seconds. And then she called her son 3 times after that, 2 more times after that on the 27th, not accepted. So it's like she calls her son at 8:45 in the morning. He doesn't answer. 2 minutes later, she calls Brian. He picks up long enough to say, hey, we can't talk right now or whatever. And then later on that night, she calls her son twice and he does not answer. So she tried them quite a bit on the 27th and 26th. And then on the 28th, she called her son again. There's no duration, but it says inmate hung up. Then she tried Brian. They talked for 2 minutes and 33 seconds. She called him 2 minutes after she didn't get in touch with her son. It says inmate hung up. Then she called her son and he did answer. This was later on the afternoon. For about 20 minutes, he talked to her. And then we have the last call that she has with Lana on the 1st of March. That is the last call they had. It lasted 3 minutes and 3 seconds. And that was around noon on the 1st of March. Some people asked who Lana was in the comments of the last video. Lana was the person who came via Zoom at Sarah's sentencing hearing and was a character witness for her. She spoke on her behalf and mentioned that Sarah was a good friend and was willing to donate a kidney to her. Lana has passed away earlier this year. I don't remember exactly when, but she and Sarah had a falling out, and this was the last call that they had. Lana was doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff for Sarah. She actually contacted James Owens on Sarah's behalf and spoke with him. If you watch Tanika's 2 Cents, she has a lot of tablet messages between Sarah and Lana. You can kind of see their relationship. And Sarah would kind of tell Lana what she wanted her to do from the outside, and Lana would do research and contact people on Sarah's behalf. So she actually did quite a bit for Sarah, but they had a falling out, and that was their last conversation. And then Lana passed away. She had kidney failure. She passed away earlier this year. So that's really all I know about that situation, but some people were asking who she was and also who Peter and Julian are. Peter and Julian are trying to get Sarah to agree to do a documentary through them. I'm not really sure why or if they've ever done documentaries before, but those are also in the tablet messages from Tanika's 2 Cents. You can kind of watch her videos and see exactly what their conversations were, but you can also see that she contacts them quite a bit. So that's all for this month of calls for February 2025, and we'll pick back up with March next time. For the month of February totals, we see that she called Julian a total of 9 times, and he accepted 5 of them, so over 50% of the time. Peter, she called 10 times. He accepted 2 of them, so just 20%. Lana, she called 17 times. They were accepted 8 times, so 47% of the time. Lana accepted her calls. Christina, I think, is going through a phone number change, so she didn't call Christina, and so Christina could not answer. Brian, she called 19 times. He picked up 8 times, so 42% of the time. Her son, she called 29 times, and he picked up 7 times, so 24%. And her brother, she called 14 times. He accepted 4 of those calls, 29% of the time he accepted. Now, for those of you that have made it this far into the video, I wanted to say how much I appreciate all of your feedback, both positive and negative. It helps me to be a better content creator. So thank you to everyone who commented on my previous video, because I made some adjustments to this edition based on your feedback. Notice I added the word logs into the title of the previous video, as well as this one, including the thumbnail, because some viewers felt deceived that I was using clickbait by insinuating that I had audio versions of Sarah Boone's phone calls. Unfortunately, I'm unable to obtain those, as the state has replied here in my request for them. I'm unsure of why there are phone calls out there of other Florida inmates, but I am looking into that. And please know it was never my intention to be misleading, and I have adjusted the title and will continue to do so in further videos so as not to confuse anyone or waste their time. And many of you, like me, did find this information interesting. So, for those of you who enjoyed it, I am going to continue the series. Thank you so much to everyone who commented and were encouraging. It's hard to make content that appeals to everyone, and I'm just glad some of you are enjoying and appreciating what I put out there. Thank you for being patient with me as I'm learning how to do this and for being so supportive. It's good to know that I am not alone in finding this type of content entertaining. So, thank you for being the best part of this community. And as always, thank you for watching.